Getting accommodation is not something that can happen in a day, it's not something that can happen in a month. It depends. So but just trust the process and keep pushing, you would get your accommodation. Hi loves, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Nicole. I'm an international student this year in the UK. So if you're new to this channel, welcome, welcome, welcome. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for always coming back. And thank you so much guys for for your recent subscription. I see a lot of people have been subscribing to my channel lately, so I want to use this opportunity to thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. And if you're here to subscribe to my channel, please do so right away. Okay, for the people in the UK or for the people coming to the UK, getting accommodation in the UK is not the easiest thing to come by in the UK. Like, it's really not easy. Some people think it's just about leaving Nigeria, leaving your home country, and then you sort it out when you get here. It's not the best. If you are coming into the UK September, this is the best time to start planning how you are going to get your accommodation. So I'll be talking from the singles aspect, and I'll be talking of how to get an accommodation for your family. If you are coming to the UK with your family, maybe your family of 4 or family of 5, you need to get your accommodation. I will be addressing that. And if you are coming into the UK as a single person and you need to get your accommodation, I will be addressing that. So let's start by saying how to get accommodation as a single person. So if you want to get accommodation, coming to the UK as an international student for your master's program or your BSc program as a single person, you can either choose to stay in your school accommodation, or better still, you can choose to get an accommodation off campus. While I was about to say while I was still a student, but I just remembered I'm still a student. When I got to the UK, I came into a school accommodation. I resided on campus, but at the moment I do not stay on campus anymore. I live in another city away from my school. But I'll tell you how I came about my university accommodation. So if you are planning to go to university accommodation, it's always the best if you choose staying off campus, because you would find accommodation cheaper, and you could choose to leave the accommodation if you do not want to reside. Like if it is an accommodation where you have to be in contract, maybe a year contract or 6 month contract. When you finish the contract, you can easily leave. But for school accommodation, for the accommodation where I reside or where I resided, it was a 1 year contract. Like I got a 1 year contract with the school that you have to be in this accommodation for a year, you have to pay this fee for a year. And you can easily get a cheap accommodation off campus. Also, there are benefits to staying on campus, which I really enjoyed while I was on campus, is that you can easily go from your accommodation to school. That is if your school accommodation is on campus, so you're not going to stress trying to get a cab or trying to jump from a bus to the other before you get to school. While I was staying on university campus, if I have a lecture by 9 a.m., I could leave my home by 8:50 and I will still get to class before 9 a.m. But if you are coming from outside of the camp, if you are coming from outside, probably you have to leave home as early as you can so you don't miss your lecture. But that is not what I'm going to be talking about today. This video is about how to get accommodation. So if you are planning to get a school accommodation, all you have to do is go to your school website and search for your school accommodation. I went to University of Stirling website and I searched for University of Stirling school accommodation, and it brought out different accommodations. The school had different accommodations. I saw beach court accommodation, I saw a language accommodation, I saw so many accommodations. School has accommodation for single people, and school also provide accommodation for married couple. I think schools are different, because I've heard of some schools that they do not provide accommodation for married people, but for University of Stirling they provide accommodation for married people. So all you just have to do to get accommodation is go to the school website and then you apply for accommodation. For University of Stirling, when you apply for accommodation, you are given the chance to apply for 3 different accommodations, and they will be the one to choose the one you get. That's how it works. So you are given the opportunity to apply for three different accommodations. I chose three different accommodation. I checked their prices and then weighed the options and then chose three different accommodation, and I was given one of the accommodation. So for University of Stirling, if you're planning to come into university accommodation, this is the best time for you to start applying. I applied for school accommodation in April and I was planning to go to University of Stirling in September. So I believe you can start looking into the university portal to apply for the university accommodation, and trust me, by August they'll start issuing rooms to people and you can easily get it. So but if you do not want to live on campus and you're coming in as a married person with kids, it is always advisable you get an accommodation that can size your family. If you're coming in with 4 children, you cannot get an accommodation, you cannot get an apartment of 2 bedroom. They would not give it to you. That's just the truth. Like University of Stirling, if you're coming in as a family of 4, they will advise you, they will give you accommodation of 4 bedroom. If you have 3 kids, that will be 4 bedroom. If you're a family of 5, they could give you accommodation of 5 bedroom. So you have to weigh your options and know the one that best works for you. So if you are planning to stay off campus and you need to get accommodation, there are so many ways you can go about it, but this is not always the easiest way this is not always the easiest thing to come by when you get to the UK. So if you're coming from Nigeria, you can start applying for accommodations. You can go on Zoopla, you can download the application, go on Zoopla and start applying for accommodation. You can go on Rightmove and start applying for accommodation, and you can as well join Facebook groups and start applying for accommodation. This is how it works. When you go on Zoopla, you search for the accommodation, you search for the location, and you put in your budget and you start applying for accommodation. You start applying for viewings, and this is how it works. You do not just apply for a particular accommodation and then that's the end. No, it doesn't work that way. You apply for accommodations, like you apply to as many places as you can, and hopefully one works out. But the thing is, when you apply for accommodations, you have to view them. That is how it works in the UK. So that is why some people end up not getting accommodation from Nigeria and they end up coming to the UK without an accommodation, and staying with someone and having to go to view. So it is always advisable, if you have somebody in the UK that resides in the location where you want to be staying, you could just speak to the person and the person helps you to view your accommodation. But if you apply to just one place, trust me, getting accommodation is not the easiest thing to do in the UK at the moment. Not just a specific location, but I feel it is everywhere in the UK that accommodation is not easy to come by at the moment, and that's as a result of a lot of students coming into the country, and it feels like the people coming into the country are even more than the accommodations provided and available for students. So you have to go on those applications and start applying for accommodations and have someone to view them for you. And you can as well join Facebook. You can as well join Facebook group of your school or Facebook group of the location where you live. If you live in Stirling, you can as well join Facebook of people living in Stirling and drop it on group chats that you are looking for accommodation, and trust me, somebody should reach out to you. Or better still, you could join university groups. I know there are groups created by universities, by students in universities or students planning to come to the universities, and then they drop messages. You could as well drop messages asking people if they have accommodation and that you can easily get, or how people got their accommodation. Information is key, and when you speak to people, they could tell you how they came about theirs, how they got theirs. From their experience, you pick one or two information and you know how you go about yours. Also, there is something people do in the UK. Families come together and get accommodation and then share the bills. A family could come together and get a 4 bedroom apartment, and then they take 2 bedroom. They share kitchen together and they share bathroom together, depending on the accommodation they get, and they share the bills together. So you could consider doing that. Message people on your group to ask if there is any spare room available. A lot of people do that. If there is any spare room available for them to give out, and you pay and then you move in. So also, if you're a single person and you are not, or you are willing to get your own personal accommodation, maybe a studio apartment which includes, I mean, kitchen and bathroom just by yourself, but you're finding it difficult to get it, you could consider living with people. You can consider, I mean, joining people that live in a 5 bedroom. Students do that a lot. They could get a 5 bedroom apartment and then they share the bills all together. They could get a 5 bedroom apartment that is 800, I mean, that is £1,000, £1,000, and each person gets to pay £200 for the accommodation. So it's all your choice. You can choose to do that, while you can choose to live all by yourself. So this is how you can get accommodation in the UK. Apply, apply, and apply. You have to ask people to view for you, and if peradventure you do not have anybody to help you view and you do not trust people that you have in the UK or anything, you could just come down to the UK. You could book an Airbnb where you and your family will stay for a while and you begin to go for viewing. But this is not what you will do. You do not start, I mean, it's not when you get to the UK you start applying for accommodation. Start applying for accommodation right from the country where you are coming from, and then when you get to the UK you will go for the viewing. It is easier to get accommodation when you are in the UK compared to when you are coming from Nigeria. But what I'm trying to say, like, there are people in the UK who have stayed in the UK for 2 3 months and they haven't gotten accommodation up till now. I'm not trying to say when you get to the UK you can easily get accommodation, but when you get to the UK you can easily get the information you need on how to get accommodation better than when you are in your home country. So when you get to the UK here, you begin to go for viewings, but you can book an Airbnb or travel lodge or anywhere that is very, very cheap. And how can you hear about these places? When you join groups on Facebook Marketplace, or you join your university group chats, or you join your university group, you can easily get places that are cheap and affordable for you and your family. Because trust me, you do not want to get to the UK and start spending so much on where you will stay. Or better still, if you have anybody where you are, anybody close to the city where you will be residing, or anybody in the school you are going, you could just speak to the person and then you stay with them. Or another good idea to do if you are coming with your family is the main applicant should go first and get an accommodation before bringing the family, because it is really, really sad seeing so many people coming with their family, coming with their children. Maybe a family of 5, they come with their children and they are moving from one place to the other. It's really not easy, and let's just feel for the children. And the main applicants can just come to the country, get a place, and then process, I mean, and then bring the dependents along. You could do that. You could consider coming first and then getting accommodation before you bring your children and your husband or your wife and whoever you want to be. I would be saying some reasons why some people find it difficult to get accommodation in the UK is their budget. If you are trying to get accommodation in the UK, maybe for University of Stirling, you want to get an accommodation in Stirling. I'll be mentioning Stirling because I'm a student of University of Stirling. Maybe you want to get an accommodation in Stirling and you are thinking of getting like a 2 or 3 bedroom accommodation, and you are budgeting £400. £400 is small to get a 3 bedroom accommodation. If you keep searching for accommodation of £400 to get, I mean, a 3 bedroom in Sterling, you will not find. So you will keep searching and searching without finding. Or better still, you are looking for accommodation, a 3 bedroom accommodation of 500 that is fully furnished. You could find, but trust me, it's not always easy. So you may want to up your game, you may want to up your budget, probably because your budget is very low. That is why you are not getting the accommodation you want. So when you up your budget, you would find something better and you will be able to go and view it, and you'll be able to secure the accommodation for you and your family. So another thing to consider when you're trying to get accommodation in the UK is your location. Are you going to a city where it is expensive? Are you going to a city where accommodation is not easy to come by, right? Or maybe in the city where you've been searching for places that are expensive, or places that people live that are really expensive. You may want to weigh that option, and you may want to search other places so that you can get accommodation. Because you are going to University of Stirling does not mean you have to get accommodation that is beside the school. If you're getting accommodation that is very close to the school, definitely the prices you'll be getting will be something high. But if you're working within budget and you have a budget, so it means you have to go outside the school. You have to, research. You have to set towards places outside. There are people who live in Haloa, there are people who live in Fokak, and they come to University of Stirling. So your budget matters a lot, and where you get accommodation. You may not find apartments somewhere close to you. You may choose and consider to go somewhere a bit far, not too far, but trust me, you will always get a means of transportation. You will always get a bus that will be able to convey you from wherever you are going to school. So you may want to consider doing that. You may want to consider searching outside of the location where you are going. You may want to consider checking somewhere else where you can easily find accommodation. And trust me, if you check outside of your location, you could as well find them cheaper. If you are considering staying in Haloa or Fokak, an accommodation you will be getting for 700 or 800 or 900 pounds here in sterling, you could get it for 500, or better still, you could get it for 400 or 550 in Fokak. So you could consider doing that. You could consider joining people and then getting an accommodation together. You could consider upping your game, and you could consider staying in an Airbnb or any travel lodge of your choice. Don't just apply to one place and then that is all. So also you will see that some accommodations, some landlords will require you pay deposit fee and advance payment of your accommodation. Some could say you have to pay for 6 months, some could say you have to pay for 3 months, some could say you have to pay for just a month, or some could say you have to pay deposit that you will get refunded after you leave the accommodation. So you have to be very, very sure what you want. It's not just about coming to the UK, but you have to plan and prepare, and that's why you have to apply to so many places and you have to inform people on how you can get accommodation. Also, landlords here in the UK always request for proof of fund. So if you are applying for accommodation, not all landlords, but some landlords request that you show them proof of fund if you want to get accommodation from there. And that is because you are a student. As a student, you are not opportune to work full time, and if you are not opportune to work full time, they believe you may not be able to afford the fee for the accommodation. So they are requesting you show them your proof of fund, which shows that you have the money in your account, and it will be easy, and they will be at ease that, oh, you can afford paying for your for your accommodation. So you have to consider that the accommodation you'll be getting, they could ask you for your proof of fund, and also they could ask you for a reference letter, like a referee. Someone who have been living in the UK can do that for you. So these are the things you have to take note of when you're trying to get accommodation in the UK. Some could ask you to pay upfront 6 months, some could ask you to just pay monthly. And for school accommodation as well, like my school, you could choose to pay your your accommodation fee, your apartment fee all at once. You could choose to pay monthly. So this is all your choice. So it depends whatever agreement you come. It depends on whatever you agree with your landlord. So that is why you have to understand this. Read the contract. If you are signing a 1-year contract, it means you cannot leave the accommodation until you complete the 1-year contract. If it is a 6-month contract, you have to be very, very sure. I will advise, if you want to get accommodation off campus, outside school, somewhere far for you and your family, you could opt for the 6 months contract, which shows that you can live in the accommodation for 6 months. Why I'm saying 6 months is because you may choose to leave the accommodation after 6 months, probably if you do not like the accommodation. But if you go for a 1-year contract, you are tied to the accommodation. You have no choice. And if you are someone who likes exploring and does not want to be tied to a particular location, you may want to consider having a 6-month contract for your accommodation. So I'll be talking about some red flags you have to consider when you are looking for accommodation. The first one I'll be saying is, when you are applying for accommodation and you find out that the landlord or the person you are speaking to about the accommodation is abroad, I think it is a red flag you have to run, because there are so many people that try to scam people because they know this is what people are looking for in the UK. When you come from your own country, you are trying to get accommodation and they are trying to scam you. It is not only in your own country they scam everywhere. So you have to be very, very careful when you're trying to get accommodation from someone. They are telling you, oh, I'm abroad, oh, I'm not in the country at the moment, oh, I'm sorry, you cannot view the accommodation, but trust me, the accommodation exists, just send the money to this account number. Please, you have to run. do not trust anybody with your money in the UK, especially when they are telling you, especially when they tell you they are out of the country and they are willing to give you the apartment. You also have to be very, very careful when they are telling you, oh, you have to make the payments now because there are so many people on it. If you don't make the payments now, you're not, the accommodation is not guaranteed. No, do not pay for accommodation you do not see. And what I mean by that is, if you do not have someone who can help you view at the accommodation in the UK, please do not pay. Don't say I trust the accommodation exists, and you go ahead and pay. Please, you do not want to lose any amount because you need every single penny in the UK. Also, accommodations when you are not able to see pictures, when you're not able to view and see pictures, they do not exist. So please, you have to avoid that. Those are red flags you need to look out for when you are trying to get accommodation in the UK. Also, when the landlord asks you to pay before viewing, I think I mentioned that earlier, you need to just know that that is a red flag. Okay, so that is it. So you could consider going for any of the options I've mentioned in this video. You could consider applying on Zoopla, on Rightmove, and there is also Amber. I think Amber is also a place you can apply for, I mean, accommodation, but they only give accommodation to singles. For students accommodation, they do not give family accommodation. So you could consider checking Amber and any other application that you can get accommodation from. When you join group chats, you would see information and ask people questions, and trust me, you will get your accommodation in no time. So we have come to the end of this video. I hope this video was able to help someone out there. I've been able to list out how you can get your accommodation in the UK. So please, if you enjoyed this video, please do well to like the video, do well to subscribe to my channel, and do well to leave a lovely comment in the comment section. Till I come your way again, stay blessed, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.